here. I am going to be joined by Dr. Brian Carson very shortly. He is a doctor in physiology and exercise, so he is a great person to talk to about tying in the elements of exercise and movement and its benefits, but also with nutrition and how to fuel yourself. So we'll be joined by Dr. Brian Carson. I can see him coming in now. So he's from Wholesupp Nutrition. It's a brilliant food moment I'll pop on. We know that exercise is medicine, so it's just for our physical health, our mental health. It's just really, really, really important that we incorporate it into our daily lives. And this is taking a little bit of a, oh, here we go. Good evening.
Hi Liz,
how are you? Turn the screen sideways there. Good. Can you twist your phone around? It's just coming in. There we go. Thank you. Welcome on tonight.
It's nice to see you.
It's great to have you here. Yeah, great to see you again, and dying to have this conversation, because I know when we spoke about it before, we had loads to say and lots to share, and so hopefully people will find this really interesting. You know, all about exercise, fueling our body, and nutrition. You've got so much experience. So if you actually want to just introduce yourself and your credentials, because I don't know if I did you justice there at the start.
Oh, but thanks, and thanks for the invitation on to your 360 series. I've been enjoying the series so far. I've been watching some of the movement and exercise pieces over the last couple of weeks, which have been great. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Carson. I'm coming in from Wholesupp today. We're a lifestyle nutrition brand, and I wear a few hats. So I'm a professor at the University of Limerick as well, and I'm the co-founder and director of Exercises Medicine National Centre. So we're talking about a couple of topics very close to my heart here this evening. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the chat.
Brilliant. I suppose the first question that people might have, or maybe we need a little reminder, is why should we exercise?
Yeah, well,
why is it so important?
Look, I mentioned a moment ago the centre, the National Centre for Exercises Medicine, and that's very much where a lot of my research and work would have been focused over the years, looking at is exercise medicine, and actually, you know, not posing that as a statement, more as a question, and actually proving that. And look, the evidence is astounding that exercise is medicine. It's not a panacea. It can't do absolutely everything, but there are so many things that it can do, and that it's so beneficial for. If it were a drug, you know, Big Pharma would be very interested, and there'd probably be a queue around the corner at Meaghers looking to fill prescriptions. The benefits go across the physical and the mental. We look a lot at the prevention of long-term conditions and chronic disease, and I know you had Noel McCaffrey on last week and speaking a little bit about the same topic and his program with XWell dealing with people with long-term conditions. So we know that we can prevent the likes of cardiovascular disease, the likes of metabolic diseases, including type 2 diabetes. It's preventative against 8 cancers, and then we can also help in the treatment of many of those diseases, which is really, really important. And we don't want to focus on the negative and the disease state, but what exercise is really good is really good at keeping us healthy. On the mental side, then it's also really important. You know, when we're physically active and we do exercise, we get a better sense of our mastery, that we've mastered or accomplished something. You know, it's huge for our self-esteem, makes us feel better about ourselves in general. And then we know it has profound effects on the likes of anxiety and depression in some instances. The evidence will be more powerful around its impact on kind of generalized anxiety and chronic anxiety than it would be for depression, but in certain cases in depression, it's been shown to be very powerful too. So, you know, that combination of all of those benefits is hugely important. And, you know,
and it can be so hard for somebody that's feeling, you know, feeling depressed, anxious, very down in the dumps, maybe no energy, low self-esteem, low motivation. So for those people, it can be very difficult to find, like, how do you start? Do you have any tips on how you'd encourage
Yeah,
people to
starting
just, where
is
do they
probably the
begin?
hardest part, and that's whether you're somebody who might have, been at a recent bout of depression. That's kind of an extreme case. But even those who are relatively healthy and just busy in their daily lives, and they've just fallen out of the habit and the routine of and doing physical activity and exercise, starting is the hardest thing. So I guess in terms of tips that I might have
Yeah.
for somebody is to make kind of decision that's what you want to do, and then like anything in life, if you kind of don't plan for it, it doesn't really happen. And it's trying to maybe integrate it into your overall
Mm-hmm.
routine and saying, okay, well, actually, where can it fit? And I think one of the best things we can probably do as well is maybe acknowledge what we do actually do. So it's not all about structured exercise, be it, going for a run or a specific walk or going to the gym or competing in sports. You're
Mm-hmm.
accumulating physical activity throughout the day. And I think to recognize what you have done, I think is important and may kind of help encourage you to maybe do a bit more once you've acknowledged that. So planning for it, I think, is important. I think another tip I'd give there is maybe setting a few
Yeah.
goals and saying, what would I like to
Yeah.
achieve? And, make them kind of some micro goals. So there might be this week, what would I like to achieve? And then maybe some big hairier goals, which are, maybe down the road and something to strive for in the longer term. So I
Yeah.
think combining a couple of those things is good, and plan to do stuff that you're going to enjoy. I'll probably repeat myself a little bit on that quite a lot. So, if you absolutely hate going to the gym, then that's probably not the one to plan. Probably start to look at the ones that you do enjoy to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, and I think with goal setting, like it can be something really small. It could be literally 10 minutes of movement, whether that's like going 5 minutes up the road for a brisk walk and turning and coming back. Like we sit on our phones, doom scrolling for a lot longer than that. And it's often you spend as long thinking about doing something, and if you just got up and do it, but it does take courage and a bit of like giving
Yeah,
yourself a
yeah.
bit of a
And
push
and I
to
think
get
that
started and
approach,
take that
that kind of first step,
first step.
and starting small is really good advice. One of the things that's kind of changed in from the research and the scientific part is that we used to say you had to accumulate X amount of minutes per day, and they had to be accumulated in the minimum 10-minute bouts before we count them and so on. But all that's changed in the guidelines. The evidence doesn't support that anymore, and it's kind of that every move counts now. So you're accumulating it throughout the day. So
Mm-hmm.
might talk a little bit about exercise snacking, and I know Orla talked a few weeks ago on the show about exercise stacking as well, which was
Yeah.
really great. But like a small exercise snack, like you're saying, a 5-minute walk, it doesn't have to be of any great intensity. It might be a stretch in your living room. It might be just getting off the phone and getting up and walking around the house, or if you're at work, and breaking up that kind of sedentary piece and prolonged bouts of sitting. That's all
Mm-hmm.
really important, and all of those minutes count
Yeah.
together, and they count together towards your overall recommendations and what you're hoping to achieve, and each one
Mm-hmm.
has a beneficial effect for your health.
Yeah, and I know you said when we spoke earlier that sitting is the new smoking. That's what the research is suggesting now. Like it's not necessarily like, oh, I've done a really good half an hour there of exercise, but how long throughout the day are you actually sitting down? I think it's really, really apparent with a lot of people working from home or office-based jobs in front of screens a lot more. So, yeah, what sort of advice? I know some people say set an alarm, or even to get up and do like 5 jumping jacks or 6 squats
Yeah, so
or
I
something,
don't love the
anything to
term
move, isn't it?
around that kind of sitting is the new smoking, but it's definitely true in that we have independent. So we've evidence
Yeah.
now that it's independently negative for our health, despite how much physical activity we might do outside of it, which is really interesting. So we have this kind of phenomenon
Mm-hmm.
in modern day life where we have what we might call the active couch potato. So effectively, we sit like huge swathes of the day, but we go out and we do our half an hour run, or we do our walk, or we do our session in the gym, or we play tennis or team sports or whatever it might be. But we sit a lot of time, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
just for anybody who's tuning in, if we just take 10 seconds and think, how much do I think I sat today? And it's probably something we can all relate to. And I'm sitting right now talking to you, and you're the same. But it might surprise you if I said we've done some research at UL. So this is Irish-based research in both work from home and in office-based workers. And in their working day, they're sitting somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5 hours. So it's a huge amount, and like that would be true for me on certain days. Other days I'm on the move, I'm on the go, but certain days I'm working at the laptop, or I'm on calls or whatever it might be. So we're all guilty of that. So trying to break up those longer bouts that are maybe 60 minutes or longer is really important. And you kind of alluded to it there, those exercise snacks. Like maybe it's getting up and doing a few jumping jacks if you're happy to do that, if you have the space to do it. But it might be doing simple things, like it might be literally a couple of squats where you are. It might be doing a stretch. It might be saying, you know what, I'm going to break up and I'm going to walk to the printer and do that, or I'm going to do a quick lap of the building, climb a stairs, come down the other stairs, and come back to my desk, or whatever it might be. And all that is really important. It all accumulates and just breaks up. That's it.
I think, as you said, the first part is acknowledging, like realizing how long you are sitting for, because it becomes so common and normal, but it's not. It doesn't mean it's right. But we all get sucked into this new routine, and because everybody could be doing the same thing around you, it doesn't mean that it's right. And it might just take one person to say, "Come on, lads, right." Like, you don't even have to make a big deal about it, but just getting up and walking for like 2 to 4 minutes.
We've done
like,
some
it doesn't
kind
have
of
to be anything
co-creation
crazy
stuff with the participants in some of our research, in some of these office-based workers, and so we tried to involve them in the design of the research studies to see if we could have an impact. And that's what they wanted. They wanted was to set up like mini groups, and that they would go for a little walk, and that it would become more acceptable in the office to maybe stand at their desk and take their calls standing at times, or that they could have a little bit of almost permission, blanket permission from the management that they would actually do that. So our environment forces people, like it's not necessarily bad behavior. Like we're very set up to be in cars. We're not that well set up for public or active transport. When we come to work, it's set up again for us to be seated a lot. So we're kind of fighting against our environment again. So there's a lot of things pushing against us. So anywhere we can push back and be mindful of the kind of physical activity we can do is really great.
And when you think about like what's the minimum amount of exercise people can get away with, if they're like, right, I'll do a bit, but like how much do I need to do to be healthy or to feel good?
Official the guidelines. So the World Health Organization revised those guidelines in 2020, and so what they recommend is 150 minutes across the week of kind of moderate physical activity. And they've added in, which is really important now, it's something we might get onto as the conversation develops, that on 2 of those days you should do some type of strengthening or resistance type exercise, because that's been recognized now as being really important for our health. All physical activity and exercise is good, and it's not one against the other, but there are some complementary aspects, and resistance and strengthening type exercises have a different outcome.
If someone's listening and they're saying, I don't really know what resistance training is, can you just briefly explain it?
We often assume the audience have too much knowledge. So for anyone who doesn't understand what resistance or hasn't heard of resistance exercise, it's anything that's applying a resistance to the body. So you can use your own body weight. So if I were to stand up and squat up and down right now, that would be a type of resistance exercise. If I were to do a press up against the wall or on the ground, that would be a resistance type exercise. If I were to add any external force, or external load, so if I were to pick up a heavy object, be that a dumbbell or a barbell at the gym, or be that something in your house, and was to move it around, that would be a resistance type exercise. So often there's a connotation when we talk about resistance or strength training that it has to be in the gym, and that's very much not the case. Anybody who has any kind of exercise band or anything like that, that is another external resistance, and we encourage kind of the use of lots of those different kind of pieces of kit, and then the use of your body itself as a resistance, because it gives you a greater suite of options of what you can do, and you can do anywhere that you don't need. It's trying to reduce the barriers for somebody to be physically active. So that has kind of crept into the recommendations, and there are kind of good reasons for that. In terms of our quality of life and our longevity, and maybe more than our longevity, our health span is probably what we'd like to promote more. So the quality of years we have rather than the amount.
Yeah, you don't want to just live forever.
Absolutely.
But not be well.
Absolutely.
So you want to live well. Yeah.
Strength type exercise and resistance type exercise are showing that if we can enhance our overall strength and function, we will stay above what's called, in a technical term now, a disability threshold. So the kind of minimum level of strength that we need to function and live independently. And if we're up here, we're a long way from that threshold. And the higher we are earlier in life, the slower the decline is going to be towards that. And the more active we are, we're going to prevent that decline and loss of muscle mass and function. So strength training helps us with that, and that allows us, I mentioned, to live independently, which is really, really important in terms of our quality of life as we get older. And as long as we can function that way, we will have a really good quality of life. So it's part of why that's crept into the recommendations.
If someone's listening now and they're like, well, I don't exercise, like I never have. And I'm talking anyone from, they could be in their 20s or they could be in their 70s or 80s. What would you say to them? Because like, if someone has no history of it at all.
A message I like to send regularly, and when I'm doing kind of sessions like this or talking to different populations, is that it's never too late to start. You probably are doing some, even if you're not doing a structured exercise, you probably actually are doing some physical activity that would count towards all of those guidelines. But it's never too late. There's really good study which I like, and so you mightn't be in your best shape of your life, and you might think, well, look, exercise is not for me, I'm too far gone, or whatever it might be. Even if you didn't lose a single kilo of weight, if weight or body mass is something you were trying to improve, but you did some more physical activity and exercise training and improved your cardiorespiratory fitness somewhat, that is actually protective against long-term conditions within your category. Even if you didn't lose a single pound or kilo of weight, you would actually be healthier and more functional as a result. So there are huge wins. The other thing I would say is we've seen that older adults, and these are above 80 years old, with some resistance training, will see improvements in their strength. So it is possible to either maintain or gain strength even into our latter decades. We have done high intensity interval training, so people might have heard as HIIT training, in men and women above 80 years of age. We have a program, and similar to Noel actually McCaffrey, who you had on before, and Xwell Medical. Noel would have started what was called MedX in DCU, which was the primer. And we have MedX UL at the University of Limerick, and we deal with people with chronic conditions. So we have people who have had heart attacks and strokes, and people with pulmonary disease who take supplementary oxygen to the class, and we have type 2 diabetics, and they do circuits and HIIT type training with us in both on campus at the University of Limerick and in Moyross. And it's incredible work, and these people gain huge amounts of function. So that message of it's definitely never too late, and you don't have to train like an Olympian. Most of the benefits are got from very moderate physical activity. So it's not huge standards. Most of the health benefits are got from a very achievable level of fitness.
Could be very active. Like I was always very active, competitive, into lots of sports. But then as you get older and you're working and you're busy, and if people have young kids or any age children, life gets so hectic, and people might, especially parents, I have a lot of friends with younger children at the moment, and I know it's so much harder for them than me with no children to find time for exercise. But as you said, like it could just be 10 minutes. Like what I do is 10 minutes in the morning before work, sometimes half an hour to 40 minutes, but I aim for 10 on my bad days. And that I've done something, and it could be a gentle yoga stretch, just throw on a video on YouTube. And it always sets me up better for the day ahead than if I don't do it. So it's not, as you said, trying to overcome these barriers and, not see everything as I don't have time. I don't have time. It's like, there's lots of things we are doing that we could maybe do a little less and choose to do other things that are going to ultimately make us feel better. Though it's not to try punish, or like, if you do something that you enjoy, and it could be dancing, or like acknowledging all the movements that you do. As you said, it's not just exercise, it's physical activity and physical movement. So it could be hoovering is a really like it's a really good workout. Dusting, cleaning, like chores around the household, acknowledging that you're doing that. And if you are a busy parent, saying, well, look, I did all of that. So not guilt yourself or feel you've put this horrible pressure on yourself, but instead, like, pat yourself in the back and say, okay, that was good. Where might I improve on this? And, look at other moments in your day where it could be 5 minutes when the kids go out and just do some
Or something
squats
with
or
something
something,
with the kids as well. That, I
wall
mean, they
press up.
love it. They think it's great fun,
Yeah.
and it's a nice way to bond with them. Like and the point you're making around it not having to be that kind of structured exercise again, I think is really important. Like if I take someone like my dad, who would probably kill me if he knew I was mentioning him now, but he's never been a structured exercise guy. I mean, he's tried it, but it's lasted a little while and never been into it, never really enjoyed it. But he's very physically active. He's always, as you'd say, kind of tipping away at something. He's always rooting around in the shed there, and he's doing something. And in the summertime, it's just coming into his season now as things are starting to bloom in the garden. And he's out there, and on a Saturday and Sunday, he's out there for most of the day, and takes a bit of pride in that. But he's getting his physical activity, as you mentioned, even the chores you're doing around the house. And we've measured all those things, and they stack up with other types of physical activity. I
Yeah.
think one thing, in terms of getting started as well, or even for anybody who just wants to do a little bit more, is that building into your routine and maybe making it a little bit social. So an opportunity, maybe it's a walk with a friend and it's catching up and it's only once a week, and it's maybe it's giving out about everything at home or whatever it might be. I know, and again, she'd kill me, but my wife was back from a run there this evening, and she didn't love running. She's always been into exercise and different types, and loves dance that you mentioned earlier. But started running recently because a bunch of like-minded women in the area, they have a little running club, and so shout out to the Scrambled Legs crew of Killaloe and Ballina. And they just put up when on their WhatsApp group when they're going to go running and who's around tonight, and they're very welcoming, and everybody goes and they have a bit of a chat in the run, and they seem to enjoy it, and they get into a routine of it. So that kind of social element can be really good, and it without being overly pressuring, it brings a little bit of accountability to you as well, and it's another reason to go out the door. So I think that's really positive too, if you can find
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, because the social connections we know impact our health positively as well. So, it's ticking another box on the kind of overall health picture, which is great. When it comes to exercise, 'cause I know you're with Wholesupp tonight, fueling our body for exercise. What kind of tips would you have for people, whether it's like
Yeah,
before
so
or after,
I mean,
or
from
yeah?
from a before perspective and an after, be thinking about fueling for the exercise and training that you're going to do. So, the harder and longer it's going to be, the more you should be thinking about the carbohydrate element. And so what we'd say is have a meal,
Mm-hmm.
in the 2 hours before exercise. It's fairly rich in carbohydrates, maybe a little bit lower in fats, and it maybe has some protein. Um, more,
What if it's first thing in the morning that you're getting up and you don't want to
yeah,
get
well,
up at 5 a.m.
one
if
of
you're
the, one
going
of the
for a run
things
at
then,
7?
look, that's we'll give the plug now. One of the things that Wholesupp is actually very good for, what most of our customers use it for, is probably at breakfast time, is a quick drink. So what we are is a superfood meal shake. So we include carbohydrate, 31 grams of protein, and 13 grams of healthy fats in each portion, with all your micronutrients, so all your vitamins and minerals as well. So it's a nice.
So not just a
Yeah,
protein shake like so many
so a little bit
products on the
more than
market.
a
It is
protein
quite
shake
unique,
for
isn't
sure. So
it?
it's a full meal. It's what we would call nutritionally complete. So there'll be 40 grams of carbohydrates, and they come from all derivatives from whole foods. So we've got 13 kind of superfoods in there, which is just gives you a really good start to your day if that's when you choose to take it. So a lot of our users would have it first thing in the morning because they are heading to the gym or to get their exercise, or they're heading out running out the door to the office. And so we find that a lot of people, one of the problems we were trying to solve is a lot of people just skip breakfast in particular. So it seems to be a good
Yeah.
opportunity to get something like that in, where you're not having to get up at 5 a.m. to do your meal prep and then get to the gym and then go to the office or to work or wherever you are. So something quick and handy you can make in 30 seconds. So, pre-exercise, getting some carbohydrate in. If it's going to be really high intensity or really long duration, then maybe up that a little bit. In the post-exercise phase, your recovery is really important. The protein is going to be a big part of that recovery. So you're looking to get 25 to 30 grams of protein as kind of soon as you can. After the exercise is finished, you have a bit of a window afterwards. And again, trying to replace the carbohydrate that you just utilized. So effectively, you're trying to restock, recover for the next day. Interesting.
How long is that window? Sorry, or does it depend on the
A little
duration or the type of
bit of
exercise you've
both.
done?
The window is was a lot of research to say that window was 30 minutes. That was optimal. But we're starting to see that the window might be a little bit longer. Which is good news. It depends. If you're an elite athlete and you're going to train again on the same day, then that 30 minutes is going to be really important. If you've done a session and you're not going to train for 24 hours, the window's a little bit longer. But getting your nutrition in is important.
Okay.
I should mention one thing. Fats are kind of demonized a little bit, but they're very important as part of
Yeah.
your kind of post-training recovery, and there's something that you should include in your diet. Like 25 to 30% of your overall diet should be from fats. You probably want to limit the likes of your saturated fats, maybe your skin on chicken, your your fried meats, your maybe not too much of the Kerrygold, even though I love it myself. But those saturated fats are a little more linked to cardiovascular health, etc. But fats which are what we call polyunsaturated fats, so things like your omega-3 and omega-6 and omega-9 are some of the healthy fats. And look, we've tried to include those in Wholesupp to give people a nice complete meal. So something to consider.
There's a really good balance in there with
Yeah.
Wholesupp then. That's
Well, look, we had
it's
the
great.
opportunity to design something from scratch on paper and taking lots of these principles into mind, and something you can do in the format that we have. And it's more difficult to do when you're making your dinner to achieve all these things. And look, eating dinner is important.
Yeah.
We're not
And
encouraging people to eat well, to have 4 or 5 Wholesupps a day. That's not the aim. This is to fill in the gap where on the meal that you find problematic. Sitting down and eating your dinner with your spouse or your family or your friends, or having lunch together and breaking bread is really important as a social aspect to food as well. And, a healthy relationship with food is really
yeah,
important.
yeah. But I suppose if you're on the go, or you have a really busy day, or you're trying to get to a gym class or anything, whatever it is, to know that this is an option and it's a well balanced meal. It's not like you're actually fueling your body very, very well. And one thing that we get asked in pharmacy a bit is the difference between plant protein sources and animal protein sources. And I know your
Yeah,
product is
so
all plant
Wholesup's
based, isn't that
completely
right?
plant-based and vegan friendly. Um, that's been a concern for the last 10 years, and it's become sort of a mantra, that your whey or your animal proteins are superior to plant-based proteins. But actually the research has changed as people are looking to more sustainable sources, and the research in that area has increased. So where some of the points are correct in that there's no single plant-based protein has all of the 9 essential amino acids that you require. So they're, by essential amino acids, something you have to get from your diet. Your body can't produce it on its own, so you must take it in. So no single plant source has a sufficient amount of all 9 essential amino acids. So we overcome that in an ingenuitive way. We combine plant sources. So what we do is we combine a pea protein and a brown rice protein. And what that does is helps us to effectively complement each other and make sure that we have all the essential amino acids. And once you do that and you have it in, without getting technical, a form you can absorb, and we've designed it like so, then there's no superiority or inferiority between plant and animal proteins. So it's a technical thing that you have to get right, and so some of the points are accurate, but if you do this, then you can totally overcome it.
And what about if someone was injured or going through a recovery phase, and would Wholesupp be beneficial for them?
I'll speak from, I didn't know you were going to ask me that, but I'll speak from personal experience coming up. I'm actually gone in, I have a little surgery scheduled next week of a kind of a long-standing injury. So hopefully I'll get it repaired, fingers crossed, and all goes well. But I have my little, I have my plan detailed out, and Wholesupp's definitely going to be part of it. But yes, something like Wholesupp, or just generally good nutrition. Wholesupp is there to fill in the gap in your overall nutrition plan. But your nutrition is really important. And actually what happens sometimes with athletes in particular is they think, oh, well, my training volume is coming down now. I need to really trim back on, my intake, because ultimately, I don't want to put on any unnecessary mass, etc. while I'm out injured. But actually, when the body's recovering, its metabolic rate increases, because you're depositing tissue like bone or ligaments, or trying to rebuild back muscle. So actually having the right nutrition when you're recovering from an injury or something like that is really important, and probably being high in protein at that point is especially important.
And that's the same, like, from illness, like not just physical injuries, but especially like in illness as well. And anybody working in healthcare, there's all these nutritional drinks that some people, that if they're finding it hard to physically eat food and they're ill, they're all being fortified with extra protein now. So it just proves. But what sources of protein, like, would you recommend from a natural food point of view?
Though our product is vegan friendly, I would be a flexitarian. I would eat from all sources. So there are obviously some good protein sources from plants, things like legumes, etc., and things like nuts. You obviously some good animal protein sources. Dairy is a really good protein source. And then any of your meats, so any of your lean meats like chicken, turkey, etc. And then red meats are very good too, but you might want to limit your red meat intake based on the saturated fat content. So, but a kind of a blend of all of those together, and getting your protein from different sources would be part of an overall balanced diet, and they'd be really good protein-rich sources. Fish as well, I should have mentioned.
Yeah. I've recently turned vegetarian in the last few years, and I don't think I could be vegan now because I love my eggs and my cheese and yogurt. But yeah, it's good to kind of look at your meals and think, like, where is my protein coming from? And am I really hungry after my meal? Did I have enough fiber? Did I have enough protein? It's trying to educate yourself more about this and having a real balance to each meal. And as you said, like, food first is always great. But if you are struggling with, and you have, as you said, a problematic meal, considering something like this, a meal shake, you call it, isn't it? As an option, could be really beneficial to just help you fuel your body to keep your energy levels high.
Quite nicely, like a varied diet, and looking at that variety in your diet, and trying to plan it out a little bit. We're living on the fly as well. Everybody understands that. And then, like I said, when we designed the product, and when Darren, my co-founder, he really was the genesis of the idea. He was really trying to solve a problem that he was experiencing himself. Was out the door in the morning without breakfast, maybe trying to do some exercise at lunchtime, and maybe just grabbing a sambo on the way back to the office or something like that maybe wasn't so nutritionally complete, and this was an option. I tend to use it a little bit actually in the afternoons, because I have small kids, so I might not get my main meal till I put them down, and so I kind of have that stretch between lunch and when I might get my evening meal it can be long. So that's the kind of problematic time it is for me, but everybody else is different. Everybody will have their own time and their own reason.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think you've shared some great insights there. If you're just going to do a quick recap, like of, you know, give us like, I don't know, three low points on why we should exercise, something about exercise snacking, your kind of takeaway
Yeah,
points to summarize
if
the
I could say a
conversation.
couple of things that people could, action right now is make a little plan. Have a look at your week. Make a little plan. Where might that fit in? And then try and hold that to yourself and set a goal and say, look, at the end of week one, could I have ticked off these? And track your progress and say, and I could, if a really actionable piece of advice that people could start, and it doesn't have to be any sort of detail in this, is a little journal. It could be on your phone, it could be in your notes, walked to work, add in that, did this session before, did a stretch before bed, whatever it might be. You don't have to log absolutely everything, but
Mm-hmm.
the reason I suggest that is you can probably, the day you miss, because you're going to miss, life is going to get in the way, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be demotivated on a particular day or whatever will happen. And what happens is people just, their activity falls off. And to look back at your journal and say, well, you know what? I made a plan and I've hit 80% of the targets that I meant to hit. And there are things I wouldn't have done and
Yeah.
I've done them. And there's no need to fall off the wagon here. I can get back on. Everything's absolutely fine and I've made progress. And track that progress for yourself. And
Yeah.
finally, if I could recommend anything, it's,
Yeah.
people ask me, what's the best type of exercise? And to be honest, it's the type of exercise that you
Mm-hmm.
enjoy doing, because that's going to be the one that's going to be sustainable. And you get a lot of the benefits
Yeah.
from aerobic type activities or strength activities or whatever it is. So whatever you're going to enjoy and you'll stick to and will be sustainable in your routine, then they did a couple of notes.
Yeah. And your future you will thank you as well in the long run. So you're really doing all this, like if you can kind of see a bigger picture as well, it
Absolutely.
just might help with a little bit of
And look, there's lots
motivation.
to be. Everybody has their own motivation and something to be striving for. And everybody innately, we all want to
Mm.
be better. Like we all are striving to, or at least maintain where we are. Maybe as we get a little bit older, but
Yeah.
we're all got something to work for. Kids or friends or life or trip or something coming up that we all want to be, fit and
Hmm.
ready to be able to enjoy it to the full.
Yeah. And yeah, and it should be enjoyable. And it also like knocks onto so many other pillars of our health and well-being. Like it usually improves your sleep, can help to lower stress, helps
Yeah.
you to make better nutrition choices as well, because it just releases better endorphins and it helps to regulate sugar cravings and regulate your blood glucose. Just so many knock-on benefits. And if you can even tie it in with people that you enjoy hanging around with, then those social connections can be so positive as well. So I think you've sold it anyway. I didn't need it to be sold to me because I love it. I'm a great advocate for it myself. But I hope people listening tonight kind of will just have a think about how much time they're sitting every day, how sedentary is their behavior, and where they could get up and maybe move a little bit more and squeeze it into their routine. And everyone will be different. So make a plan,
Exactly.
as you said, and
Yeah,
just
you,
give it
you
a
definitely
try.
won't regret it. I'm yet to meet the person who regretted doing a piece of physical activity or exercise. We usually feel, we get that
Yeah.
boost. We feel good about ourselves, and again, that's a feeling which is encouraging because it will encourage us to do it again. So
Yeah, I think if you could sell the feeling you get after a workout in a small bottle, you'd never not do it. So I don't think anybody ever regrets doing a little workout, but you always regret not doing it because we can procrastinate and guilt ourselves. But just draw a line under that day and make a new
it's
plan
getting the
for the
runners
next day
on,
and
or
move
it's getting
forward.
out of the
So
chair, isn't it?
yeah,
And once you do that, you might only do five
yeah.
minutes, and you might end up doing a little bit more, but at least you have done something.
Exactly, exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. You're a wealth of it, and yeah, I'll have to try the Wholesupp now myself. I
Put it
haven't
in for
managed to get my hands on it yet, but
a
I
bit of
will,
post-exercise
and I'll let you know.
recovery, and I'll definitely feel the
Yeah,
the energy boost from it. It's I hope you enjoy it, and give us your feedback. And look, thank you very much for inviting me on.
I
It
will.
was a pleasure, and really enjoyed what Mars are doing, what you're doing and leading on in the 360. It's very enjoyable following the series. So well done to you guys.
Thank you. Thanks so much. All right. Hopefully our paths will cross again. All right.
Bye guys. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.